Hey, Satori Shakur, coming to you live from WDET in Detroit. Our next storyteller, Carlos Nielbock. Born to a biracial couple, American-born black father, German-born mother. Leaves Germany, he comes on a quest in search of his father, lands in Detroit, and goes on the most remarkable reunion and journey that you ever heard. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Carlos Nielbock.
Good evening. My name is Carlos Nielbock, and I'm so privileged to tell you about my story, which starts with my dad, who migrated from West Virginia and escaped utter poverty there, and migrated to Detroit and joined his brothers looking for fame and fortune. He ended up joining the Army, United States Army. He found himself on his way to Germany, which America occupied after World War II. And he was a black GI, real good looking, and full of energy, and I think he wanted to prove himself. And he found himself with all those limitations. There was black bathrooms and white bathrooms and all those different things that different races have to do. And he met my mother, which was a white woman, and they fell in love, and out came me. And the Army didn't really like that so much, so they sent him back to the United States, and I stayed behind with my mother in Germany. My mother, real good looking too. So as time went by, she met a fella who fell in love with her, and my dad was far away in the United States, and at that time it was made clear to both of them that that's not going to happen. Black people and white people don't mix, and they don't have no kids. My dad was sent to the Upper Peninsula, where there was an Indian reservation close by, and he found another companion. And so I have another sister, she is Indian, so that's, that's just on the side, but so I grew up in Germany, all really charged, and like I say, my mother fell in love again with a fellow named Heinz Nielbock, and who adopted me, and he really realized that there's a hard time between an interracial kid growing up there in post-war Nazi Germany, where all the people kind of looked the same. I was protected by my dad, and actually he was affluent in the city, and they had a cabaret, a Moulin Rouge type of establishment that was well known in the city, which everybody frequent kind of, and he was influential and made sure that I got a good education, that I was accepted in the schools, that I was education that German young man of my stature and age just got, and I was integrated by my dad. He made sure that I was not harmed in any kind of way. So as I grew up, and I kind of figured out that I'm not the 100% German person, and I saw on TV James Brown and Bob Marley and oh my God, and Muhammad Ali and all kind of other people that identified kind of with them, kind of liked them. And other people looked at me kind of to get somewhat of an education that was geared towards me, I find myself in a monastery that teaches young men a skilled trade. And those monks, they was in that monastery, they was exercising the skilled trades that you might find in a Catholic church, like stained glass windows and Bible binding and, wood carving and just all kind of great skill trades. They're hundreds of years old. They was passed on from one tradesmaster to the next and so forth. And I immediately liked it, the guy who did the fire and the blacksmith and this sort of stuff. And I liked it, all the action, and I was on and, tried to get that education. And but I wasn't really accepted by those trade master who really ruled this entire metal fabricating shop. He was an old guy with one eye and shoveled in, and people bowed to him and got him a chair and put him his fire on, and he just put the raw material iron in the fire and made it hot and hammered around on it, and out came the rose or beautiful ornaments and things like this. And I wanted to do that, but the skilled trades is like a privileged type of thing that when the trade master likes you, then he pass that kind of on to you. He favors you and he pass on all that knowledge to you, but I wasn't the candidate. So I kind of looked at what they was doing, and when they told me to clean up the shop after it was done, I took the fire out, made it back on, and I monkeyed up exactly the same thing with this stuff. And little by little, I became good in it, and so after a few trials and errors, I became the jobs, just give it to Carl. And so I graduated and I got this really good education as a blacksmith, and after that I joined the national service in Germany. Every young man has to go, and after that I really wanted to only be in business for myself, but that wasn't really possible because in Germany you have to be a skilled tradesman for a long time and belong to those guilds that, doing all those rituals for a long time and all this stuff. And that was all too long for me. And they really told me that it was no way that I'm working on the castle or on this church or any. And so I opened up my own business. I got a few jobs and was independent, and I felt good. And some way, somehow, I had to find my dad, and I was really stagnant, and it was not really that what I wanted to do. And I remembered all my good buddies that I had in Germany that was British soldiers. These British soldiers came from Jamaica, and of course I want to go to Jamaica. But before Jamaica, I had to go to my dad and see if I can find out about my real dad here in Detroit City. So I went to a traveling agency and said, I gotta go to Jamaica, and first I gotta go to Detroit, find my dad. And they told me I gotta go to New York, and from New York you catch a Greyhound, and you're gonna go. So I end up here in Detroit, and the bus driver told the ticket person right there and said, look, this guy, you gotta watch him. He looking for his dad. And I had a letter from Helen Street, they were on the east side of Detroit, right, the east side. And the ticket person said, yeah, I got a brother, he's a cab driver, and he drives you there. And before you know it, I was on Helen Street, between Charlevoix and Vernon. The house was abandoned, yeah. So I sat there and just gathered myself, and I thought, maybe the neighbors know, And before you know it, I found the uncle, and the uncle had my cousins, and he lived down the street with his girlfriend. I get to know all this family and so many black people I never seen in my life. I mean, I kind of was like, and they kind of looking at me like, kind of like cousin, yeah. So they fanned out and looked for my dad, and about an hour later, and after a lot of Kool-Aid, and he walked in the door. He walked in the door, and I'm standing there, and I'm like, and he like, how long you stay? I like, I don't know, you know. So he invited me to come to his girlfriend, and they prepared already a room for me, and I just settled in, and I just said to myself, "You're gonna stay here," you know. And so the next day, they show me around, and I'm see Detroit for the first time, and I'm seeing all those skyscrapers and houses and Cadillacs and Lincolns and oh my God. Me from a little town, 65,000 people and a lot of cows around and just nothing like this right here. And I had this little workshop in Germany, my little art studio and pictures, and I showed everybody, look what I'm doing. I'm good with my hands, I'm do this metal work, and people say, yeah, that's nice, but nobody buy this here, you know. You got to go to Hollywood, where the rich people are. I end up to drive to Hollywood, and that's where I learned English, and I learned, America, and it was really strenuous on me to the point that after a year, I want to just go home, and I want to admit defeat, and I just wanted to go home. And I called the consulate, and I said, I can't do it no more. I overstayed my visa, and I got to go. I got to go back home and say, okay, you got to go from Detroit because that's where you came. So from California back to Detroit with the Greyhound took a few days. And when I arrived in Detroit, I was really, it was at nighttime, I was tired and I had nowhere to go, and it was just the house on Helen Street where nobody was, and I just got there and got in there and found a room, and next morning I was gone in any which way, so fell asleep, and in the morning I heard birds, like beautiful birds. And I opened my eyes and looked out the window. There was this almost a garden like in a paradise, roses and fragrance and birds and little colored windmills that spin around, and I mean like things like unbelievable, like Tyree Garden kind of, but more brilliant. And that was my dad's private garden that he put together of his memory of his travels when he was in Algiers and Germany and saw this castle and the rose garden and here and there. And he just made himself a little world, and I woke up there and I looked around some more, and before you know it, I just threw my ticket away. I just got new courage, and I really wanted to try it one more time. And I'm trying to from that point on, I'm trying to understand my dad. I learned the language. Trying to understand how come he never came back to, or look for me, and the more I try to understand him, and I try him to understand me, there was just no connection, kind of. The connection wasn't there, and I, some kind of way, made my mind up, like, this is my dad, and you came all the way from here, and I gotta ring through him some kind of way, and I made my mind up at that point. Really, I do everything to be a good son to him, so he have to like me. I'm just told him, I say, look, I'll stay here, I'll be a good son to you, And he say, okay, well, you gotta get a job with the city, you gotta get a job. I said, no, not really. businessman, entrepreneur. So how much is this going to pay? So it took 3 years, me staying in this house right there against his will, trying to convince him that not going to work 9 to 5 is really the way to go. And why I'm trying to do this? I'm trying to go to school, and I'm trying to get some kind of degree in fine arts or some kind of handle on how to make money and how to be a man and how to do stuff. And he would be hustling and working his job and have money and doing all kind of stuff. The first opportunity of any restoration that happened in Detroit was the restoration of the Fox Theater. And when I heard about that, and it was big proclaimed, I put my suit back on and just walked straight to the trailer, to the building trailer there, construction trailer. And I told him, my name is Carlos Nielbock from Germany, and I'm here to take care of all of your metal needs. And it really led to a substantial contract that in interim gave me enough finances to restore the house that my dad had to the point that when it was originally built, the floor sanded, the moldings done, everything. And I built a workshop in the backyard, my studio. And I operated out of there for 15 to 20 years. And I made so much business out of it and grow so much out of it, I gotta say thank you to all my neighbors too, because I was welding and doing blacksmithing in the middle of a block, residential area, grinding in 2 o'clock at nighttime and, blue light coming out of all of my windows. So I outgrew that, and I found another building on Eastern Market, and I was able to do the same thing. I was applying my skilled trades, bought the building for cheap, and restored it with my own hands and with the help of my buddies, and was able to grow my business. And my son, he do the same thing that I do. We had many conversations, and don't do this, and you listen and all this kind of stuff. But at the end, he do what I do. My daughter, right there, the youngest daughter, she is my business administrator. I don't even know how to sign a check or anything. She really steered my whole thing around. Everybody been through the rough times since 2012, I have to tell you. And my other daughter, she make me a proud granddaddy. So I'm a granddaddy now, and my father's a great granddaddy. And, he getting old now, and he can't drive no more, but I know he is just a happy man looking back, and that's my story.
Twisted Storytellers Podcast is a production of WDET in Detroit. Recorded live at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History by Rassam Cherry. Sound design and mixed by Sam Bobian and Rowan Nemistow. Podcast coordinator Joan Isabella. And special thanks to Michael Perkins. I'm your host, Satori Shakur. And thank you, MGM Grand, for supporting Season 3 of the Twisted Storytellers Podcast. See y'all next time.